I can see Mr. Afolabi Mukwede already. You know, efficient people. I said that's how you know Mr. Efficiency. How are you?
Very well, sir. Good evening, Ebony. How are you?
We thank God Almighty always,
Good.
always,
Yes.
always. You are welcome on this program.
Thank you.
I am very, very, very delighted to have you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think you can see me clearly and you can hear me loud and clear.
Yes, I can.
Our dear viewers, are you also able to see and hear us clearly? Regular viewers, thank you so much for joining us again tonight. Yes. Wow. Okay. So, are you seeing us? If some people are also watching on Facebook, they should kindly let us know that Facebook is okay. Is Facebook okay? What of Twitter? Twitter is fine. YouTube. Okay, we are good to go. A music that would inspire you before you inspire us. So
Okay.
it's a two-way thing. So we are going to play a song that we believe will inspire you and get you ready for the task ahead.
Okay.
And this is Timmy Dakolo.
Okay.
With one more nation undivided and point, we will take us down to defend what is ours. One hand for one cause, where the time to rebuild and restore. We're free, rebels, our land.
No sound? Is that true? No, there's no sound? Can you hear me?
I can hear.
Why someone say no sound?
Where there's hope for us all.
Yes. I have the honor and privilege and excitement of welcoming these gentle giants. Yes, that's how I would like to describe him. Afolabi Imokwede is a gentle giant. Is someone who has achieved a lot very quietly. Well, every now and then you will hear about him because a goldfish has no idea.
Thank you very much, Bob D.
I am holding a copy of your book, which you have generously and kindly sent to me. And I think everyone should find a copy to read. I like the title. Pragmatism to government idealism. and the End Power success story. Wow. And then I went behind, and it's very short and sharp. I like the quote from Proverbs chapter 22, verse 29. It shall not stand before mean men. It's one of my favorite quotes in the Bible. Quoting the verse on diligence, senior special assistant to the president on job creation, Afolabi designed his own academy, Skill Up, where he trained young Nigerians in technical and vocational education to fill a lacuna of skilled artisanship in Nigeria. It was his passion and dedication to creation of employment opportunities that led him to government, where he became the inaugural officer in charge of the End Power component of the President Momodu Buhari's National Social Investment Program, NSIP. In the pages of Never an Afterthought, Imokwede narrates his journey on the path of destiny and explains the reasons for the creation of the End Power program, its initial hiccups, and enduring successes. It shows that the transparency and efficiency of End Power's operations can shine. Talking about all this later in the program. I hope you have all the time in the world. Because this is one subject that interests me. The private government partnership, how it works, how it fails, the challenges, and of course, the opportunities and the triumphs.
Yes.
I like when people are detailed. Don't forget, I'm a writer. I'm a man of letters, so I love details. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, my bon Bob D. Thank you very much for this privilege to all our listeners that are watching me tonight. My name is Afolabi Imokwede. There is a middle name Sokwehi. For many who wonder what part of this country is this man? Is he a Yoruba Edo or Yoruba man? So my father, the late Joseph and I forget Mokwede, hailed from Sabongida in Edo North, what do you call it? Senatorial, North Senatorial District in Onwa in Edo State. And my mother, now late, unfortunately, in past tense, Mrs. Olubumi Mokwede. So she hails from,
I think your internet, just a minute. Yeah, it's getting a bit cloudy, foggy right now. And then if you could turn down your microphone a bit, I think it's bouncing back, so we can have a perfect voice. Yes, just a little. Very sorry, dear viewers, but we want you to. This is a very, very, very special guest, and we want you to enjoy this conversation. Yes, I can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the picture quality looks better as well. I hope it stays like
my background and how precisely I am. My parents, one from Edo State, one from Ogun State, and then Joseph Mokwede from Edo State. My mother, Olubumi Mokwede Ni Olushoga from Ijebu Ogbolu, Ogun State, and so that makes me a hybrid Nigerian. Although born and bred in Lagos with a stint in Benin, when I lived in Benin for a bit, when my father, obviously a Westerner himself, lived in Ibadan for many years, loved Ibadan for many years, and worked out of Ibadan in the Western region then, before the creation of Midwest, which then positioned him back to Benin. So by the time we came, I'm the last child on both sides. My father and my mom. So by the time I came, he was now retired in Benin. Retired but not tired, as the book says a bit about him in chapter 3. But nevertheless, my early in Benin as well, I attended the Motan Primary School in the late 70s, very early 80s, and then moved on to Federal Government College, Warri. Again, as I listened and what Pastor Ito speak about King's College, my father is a product of King's College, graduated in 1938, and so naturally, I was also to go to King's College. I said a bit about it in the book anyways, but as Providence would have it, I didn't get in the first year, and the second year they invited me, so I got in on merit list at Federal Government College, Warri, and by second year when they invited me to join King's College again, I said, well, I'm not about to go become a new student in another school, so I stayed on Federal Government College, Warri, with great friends and of course a lot of great alma mater as well. In Federal Government College, Warri, and then so there I went on from graduating in first as a medical student. My story, so that's where my trajectory starts. The interesting part of my trajectory. So my father's dream was for me to be a medical doctor. Why? Don't ask me. I know he wanted to be a doctor at some point, but then I was for me to be a medical doctor, and I was a science student all the while in Warri. I mean, physics, chemistry, biology, pure science. I think the only non-science that I took was literature in English. So pure science to go do it. And yes, I did get the admission in University of Lagos for medicine, did my did my pre-med in Akoka, and then moved on to Idiaraba Lut for my core medicine course. There was but along the line in the Higgy Haga of the 90s with our academic university, as you know, university system started getting staggered in the late 80s with strikes upon was as an entrepreneur. I discovered who I was as an entrepreneur, and that's how the race for medicine versus entrepreneurship started. But nevertheless, I continued in med school until I think it was 1995, 96. We then had this protracted strike with the then head of state, Abacha, and with ASU and Unilag in itself also had a punitive measure. I can't remember what the details were at the time. And that's how I found myself getting busy as a young man in several entrepreneurship endeavors, which I attempted to detail a few of it in the book, in the Never and After Thought book. And soon enough, I found out that I think really decision to leave medicine in 1997 and then traveled on to the States to pursue my own dream. So that first and foremost, I think I also tried to document in that book a bit of the tension in the family at the time. Because in the words of my mother at the time, she would say to me, certainty le, uncertainty. Meaning that you have something that is very certain, and yet you want to leave that to go for something that is not assured. Secondly, at the time, still remains competitive costs in our Nigerian educational system. And she was like, you know how many people want to get into medicine and can't be in medicine? And here you are in medicine, now you want to also leave the medicine. Nevertheless, I did leave and I don't regret. I never regretted it for a day. And when I came to the States, I then pursued my entrepreneurship dream, and hence I graduated as an accountant in the States out of Rutgers University in New Jersey. Just also, part of it also, in that book, I also explored, the journey and the portraiture of choice and decision making. What happened with me was in between so when I studied in the 2-year community college in the American system, and at the end of that, of course, I was graduating that diploma course. Gain admission to them, and so I tell a story. And but because time I asked, the question I simply asked was, which companies come to your school to recruit? And they gave me the likes of notable companies like Johnson and Johnson, Rand, Xerox, global companies like that. But I had a vision, and my vision really was to work with the best accounting firm there is. And at that time, we used to call them the top 5 accounting firm, which later became top 4: KPMG, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Ernst and Young, Deloitte and Touche, and then Arthur Andersen, which fell off along the line to become top 4. So as much companies were mentioned, full scholarship of my dream with Rutgers University, who did not offer me a full accounting firms came to Rutgers for their recruitment. And that's how I made that decision to pay sacrifice, to sacrificially pay out of pocket over a full scholarship, from another university. And so, obviously, a year before I graduated, by the grace of God, I had offers from both PricewaterhouseCoopers and also from KPMG. So what I did in trying to have the both worlds, I trajectory for me in my I moved from medicine to business.
Wow. Now,
can you hear me?
B-Bash. Madame Biola Bashorum, good to see you. Nikki Ebony, Egimi, Mike Efiok. Professor JJ Omojua. Professor, how are you? So good to see you. Wow. Interesting. Dr. Teju Osho, Senator Tej. Good to see you. Wow. This is power packed this evening. Power packed. Let's see if Afolabi is back. Not yet. We're waiting for Afolabi to rejoin us. It's good to see all of you. Thank you so much for joining us. Yes, it's a topic that should interest all of us. This gentleman is a genius, someone that we need to watch and listen to very carefully. Yeah, it should be here any moment from now. Sorry, he's just changing his. Okay. It's here now. Good to have you back.
Yep, I think the internet is
this time.
Yep.
So I was talking about your school at Warri. That are you able to recollect some of your schoolmates at that time?
Oh yes, oh yeah. In fact, my publisher, Dr. Gosa Maswan, is one of my schoolmates. In the what's it called? My good friend and also schoolmate is one of those South, Honorable Ogbaide Hama. He's one of my schoolmates, and yeah, I mean, so yes, definitely right now.
Yes, they must be very proud. They must be very proud of your activities over time. Okay, yeah. So yes, go on. You were talking about your
so anyway, so I explained how I moved from medicine to become the business entrepreneur that I am today, and so obviously at KPMG, I worked there in the States for a few years, and that was how. And of course, when he ascended the presidency, his goal at the time was to reform. Several reforms were being promised for us in Nigeria, and I remember part of his trips then to several countries, he would always appeal while in the States, especially since I was based out of New Jersey and then later moved to the Maryland, DC area. And so along the line, I think I was one of those who heeded that call in coming back home. But what facilitated my coming back home was actually in 2001. I remember at that time, I have a big sister, Dr. Mary Agboli. She's a World Bank consultant. At the time, she had come back home to work with the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. And as you know, the NESG hosts the annual going back to Nigeria, because we're in the States together at the time. She said, I think I have an offer for you. I think you should attend the NESG summit for that year, which was October 2001. And I believe if you attend that summit, it would help answer your questions whether you should make this journey or not. If you should make that year, I was still with KPMG, my employers at the time, so I took a short leave to travel down to Nigeria, and I attended that summit in Abuja. Now, that summit, I think for me, confirmed a whole lot of things. It confirmed for me that yes, Nigeria was serious about really getting out of the doldrums from the many years of the military rule. It confirmed for me that we had sound economic advisors that were, and in particular, I remember it's a long time ago now, but I remember in particular one of the breakout sessions I attended, which was discussing the privatization. And in that room at that time, Malam Nasir Rufai, now governor of Kaduna, he was the director general of BPE at the time, was in that room. Sheyi Bickerstedt was the managing country partner for KPMG. Nigeria. He was in that room at Edo Peterside, and a few great Nigerians reach. And for me, I think I got the conviction that I needed, that once I got back to the States, I could start preparing my exit down to Nigeria. So that's how I started working on trying to disconnect myself from the States to come back to Nigeria. Then I also remembered again what then happened because of my hunger for Nigeria. I started reaching out, building networks, because again I was now in the Washington D.C., Maryland area. World Bank is in DC, so I had quite a few friends and networks in that project that the World Bank Group had set up, which was the Africa Project Development Facility, APDF. And the Nigeria office, the country office for Nigeria, was just being newly set up, because before that time, Nigeria was manned from the Ghana office. And so with several networks, I started picking up what you call short-term consultancy jobs, even though I was still in the States, but then I would use my leave time and things like that to take on some short-term consultancy jobs. So and it was in 2005. Now, part of the reasons that 19 now has taught us in Nigeria now is changing our culture, teaching us about remote working and teaching us about how to work digitally. But with the training from the States, that was part of our culture already as far back then. So I realized that when I come into Nigeria and I open some doors or open some business links with the intent that, okay, once I go back to the States, I'll follow up with emails and move on from there. It just never worked. It just never worked, because you would send an email. I mean, back then, 2003, 2004, you send an email to whether it's a public official or even so many private of link serve, dial-in before you can get internet dial-up and things like that. So I just realized that when I come, set up, maybe you open some network links and you're trying to chase up 6 weeks, 6 months down the line, when you come back, you're starting all over again. And so I realized that if you're really going to do this, then you're going to do this. If you're not going to do this, then you're going to stay back. So I had to take that decision. And 2005 was the year that I finally left the States and then moved back to Nigeria for real. And at the time, in 2001, just after the NASG summit, like I said, I took my decision that, okay, Nigeria was going to be it, but I needed to plan my exit. One of the things I did then was to register a Nigerian company. And so myself and a few friends at the time registered our company, a private company known as MCS Consulting. So we registered it at the time. My lawyer, who helped us in the infrastructure company, a lot of progress has moved on as well. So when I then came back in 2005, there was then again another choice. Do you want to go work for companies, or you want to build your own enterprise? And I think I took on that decision to build my own enterprise. And again, working with some local networks here, some good egbons. I remember precisely Dr. Adekoya at the time now of blessed memory, who also helped me with opening the doors. Because the challenge I had in 2005 was a lot of my own colleagues at the time were also just starting out in their career. So many of them were at mid-level in their career. They were not decision makers per se. And so here I am running a business where you need decision makers to network with. So at that point, therefore, I needed to rely on some useful, some bonds who were ahead of me, but who believed in my vision, who believed in me, and they also helped to open a few doors. I enumerated a few of it in the of how we started, and it was one of such projects under the MCS Consulting that I experienced firsthand that of technical vocational. When I went with my team of consultants that we were. I was a project manager doing construction projects. And on getting there, we got to site, and the first question the client rep there asked me, where are your people? I was like, this is us. The fact was there, and is this your people? I did the ones going to carry the block, and I said, no, we are the consultant engineers. We'll hire the labor and the. He said, hey, okay, no problem, good luck. Anyway, then took us around site, whatever needed to be done, and what have you. And then we started, and the first week we realized when we even want to find the first shock we had was the work culture. A lot of our workers then would want to go to site at about 9, and by 3, 4 they want to leave site. And I'm like, my training teaches me that you're on site by 7:30, and that you really, you walk till about 5, 6, night and things like that. So that was my training, that was my experience. So in any case, after 2 weeks, we realized quality of work we got from the locals at the time were from people that came from Aba. So after 2 weeks, we realized if we continue, we need to rejig our model. We need to go back to Lagos and go bring our skilled men and what have you. And he now laughed. He said, hey, when are they telling at that time? You thought I was joking. We were expecting you to come with your team, not just your orgas. The orgas at the top. Anyway, that was how we came back and got all our workmen from Lagos to come down to Port Harcourt, change the model. We now have to get a guest house and what have you, to accommodate them, how to get a bus to bring them to site and take them back, how to get security, because those were the times that the Niger Delta area was still a bit tricky. We thank God for the peace we have now in that region. Anyway, that was when the inspiration for Skill Up came. Was far back then, 2005, 2006, 2007. And because the question I asked was, when did we become this? Because even the workers we brought from Lagos, truth be told, they were not Lagosians. They were Beninois and Togolese. I think, of course, a few were Nigerians. I remember there are which we call POP, and all the internal works is a well-trained Nigerian. His story is again a different story because it's actually a chemical. I think, yeah, he's a well-trained engineer, but he chose and then so those were called business. Realize that if you wanted to have reliability and decency of 70s when my older uncles and when we were building their homes, we never had a case of relying on the Benin and Togolese. What happened? And that's what led me into the fora of the research work and the passion to reviving the technical vocation education, which 4 years after this whole discovery was, because like I said, it was a personal first-hand discovery. So 4 years after this discovery, after a lot of desk research, after a lot of study and interactions across board, we came up with the Skill Up model, which I also discussed in entirety. I discussed in detail earlier.
Fantastic. Now, this issue of vocational work, I always like to cite the example of Ghana.
Yes.
What they've done, especially under the government of President John Dramani Mahama, was to upgrade a lot of their technical schools, even to university level, because sometimes you have a lot of very brilliant, skilled guys who won the big title, the big degrees. But, in Nigeria, when you say someone went to Polytechnic, then some people look down on them. So what would be your own suggestion to how to bring it up to date? How do you upgrade vocational work in Nigeria?
Subject area that I've espoused quite broadly over many years, and I remember that I'm sure there are even still quite a lot of YouTube videos or recordings of me discussing this topic, even on channels TV for quite a bit. Now, found ourselves, and I like to say that the society at large. By that society, I mean government, I mean parents, I mean every one of us in the society. And I always like to cite the example of the way the educational system, the universal basic education, which says that your literacy, it's your 9 years that combats illiteracy. Once you have your 6 years primary school and your 3 years junior secondary or junior high, depending on whatever part of, because I junior high, junior secondary, however way it goes. 9 years is that global universal basic education requirement. Now, there's the reason why it's that 9. Now, post that 9 years, really you should be finding your pathway. And that pathway includes TVET, includes technical, it includes vocational, it includes the arts, it includes creative, it includes technology. Now, the everything, it's all encompassing, such that, and that was what you remember in our history we tried to do with the 6334 system in 1985, precisely, or 86, with late Professor Babs Fafunwa. The only challenge was, I also know that the federal government at the time also invested in a lot of the technical, the instructor worry at the time. But the reality is, what has happened to us is this stigma that if you do not go to university, you are a nobody or you are a second-class citizen. That's what has happened to us, such that you even find out that people who really genuinely have no business going to university just go to the university because they want to avoid that stigma. And from the day they finish that course in university, they will give the diploma to their parents and say, now I've gone to university, I'm no longer that illiterate, right? Take your degree, now let me go and start my own. And they end up now going to music school or going to culinary school or going to photography school, learning. For us as a people, we've got to come back to that point. And this is the reason why our educational system is challenged. This is the reason why our university system is challenged. This is the reason why government in many ways is confused, and the academic institutions themselves confused as to what really and how really we should position our universities. I believe, first and foremost, that we must espouse a multiple pathway. And that's one of those things that in part of the educational reforms that have started some few years ago, maybe about 7-8 years ago, even with the National Board for Technical Education. They came up with this, with this policy now called the National Qualification Framework, wherein it's from levels 1 to 7. And regardless of wherever you are, if you went to a technical college and graduated, you are measured on a certain level of proficiency. If you went to a monotechnic, a polytechnic, you are measured on several levels of proficiency, and you can then find your CEs right now. For that young guy, and I had a whole lot of them in the skill up intervention, for that young guy who is desirous of learning plumbing or learning electrical or learning mechatronics, once he takes the course and finishes, and perhaps even sits for a city and guilds, if in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 years down the line, he wants to continue his education, what usually happens in UK is they would evaluate your learning and then recommend where you should start from, maybe from year 3 or year 4 or a polytechnic or whatever. But here in Nigeria, such a guy either has to go and sit for JAMB to go through that all over. Yes, or or he now has to go. He basically just has to go start all over again. Which is not, so these are the reasons why we have all these anomalies, and this is what is proliferating this stigma, and that is what is also now challenging our university systems, that you have this overpopulation. Meanwhile, we should be distilling from a post-secondary school channel where with a proper guidance and counseling department, which it's non-existent in a lot of our institutions, with the proper guidance and counseling in your senior secondary, you should be able to find your pathways, and whichever pathway you go, there should be no dead end. It should be able to launch you and move you forward. So that really is the problem in Nigeria and in a couple of other African countries. You mentioned Ghana, it was the same problem in Ghana. But part of what we all needed to do first and foremost was to realign even the curriculum for our technical colleges. And this is something I championed quite a bit even before coming into government, because as my CV will tell you, I worked with a lot of international development organizations around reforms like this. And that is also what awoken the Board for Technical Education in driving sectoral reforms across sectors. I know we started at the time, MBT focused on construction industry, automobile industry, hospitality industry. I imagine they are progressing with all. Is underpinning the training. It's relevant to the industry. The town must meet the gap. Otherwise, people would go to the Yabatech of this world or any of these institutions. They will graduate and the companies will say, I cannot hire you because you are not fit for purpose. So for you not to have that output, you must correct the process together. And that's why in the book, in this Never an Afterthought book, I espoused the theory of what I call the 5-finger bridge. What is the 5-finger bridge? One is the industry, and I always say that the longest finger is the industry. The industry is the one to drive the reform, because the industry are the ones investing in the new technology. The industry are the ones investing in the robotics. The industry are the ones that know the required skill sets to drive their plant and machinery. So they must always drive, the industry must drive the process. Immediately after the industry, part of what the industry will do is define the competencies that they require across each of the levels, level 1 to level 7, and follow industry. Then is what you call the training providers. Now, I like to categorize all of them, whether it's the government technical college, whether it's the federal polytechnic, whether it's the state, whether it's... Then after the training providers, you then have your technical instructors. Now, that is a group of our academia that have been so neglected over the years for technical instructor. That program has been abandoned for quite a bit. And you find, therefore, that the instructors, a lot of instructors who are even in technical colleges now are self-taught. They taught themselves. Now, a lot of them, as they are retiring over the years, you know, you are going to keep finding that you have. Then the last but not the least, of course, in addition to the instructors, it is also the workshop assistants. Because what you find as well in a lot of our technical colleges is that they go there and they are just as theoretic and practical. Because the workshop assistants are the ones that are supposed to supervise and guide the practical application of knowledge in the workshops. The last of the five fingers is the trainee himself. The trainee themselves must be encouraged. And in Nigeria now, and maybe some other African countries, we don't even have an economy in itself is not growing as fast as our population expansion and population growth. So what are you going, how are we going to come out of this conundrum? We have to do what China and what India have done, which I also espoused in the book, which is formation of cottage industries, entrepreneurship. So what you then find now that even those who have gone into this line, those the entrepreneurs, and in every family home that is putting money on the table, even for his graduate brother or sister who is unemployed. So therefore, you find therefore that there's already enough motivation for you to find trainees, because they are motivated so long as they know that when I finish this program, I can meet the needs of the industry, and beyond that, I would also be able to work for myself, set myself up. That's the story in a nutshell of Empire. You know, in terms for which about over 50,000 young people have been trained. Now, this is very different from the graduate program where we had the 500,000 in the program. So, but that's basically the challenge. It's something that it requires a handshake between the public and the private sector along these five fingers stakeholders that I've mentioned. It's a multi-stakeholder solution to a problem that is biting us in the face and that we must seriously address.
Well, it's just almost the same as the next question. We have a lot of the unemployed in Nigeria.
Yeah.
But the problem is the unemployable.
Yeah.
So how do you reconcile that? Yes, people say we don't have jobs, but no, it's not that we actually don't have jobs. There are things some of us are willing. We say no, I'm a graduate. That's beneath me. So how are you able to deal with all that?
So you therefore find, sir, that again is a multi-pronged approach. The first thing first is there needs to be a mindset change. And that's the reason why, even before coming into government, even with the skill up model, as I explained in the book, we immediately took on the notion of ambassadors. So among our successful trainees, we raised them to the level of ambassadors, and obviously part of why they are successful is the fact that they are dutifully employed with their skills. I reference success stories like Shile in the book, who, as I'm speaking, perhaps if you may be watching from Dubai, Shile in the book, who basically did not go to the four walls of university, but he left Government Technical College Ikorodu, graduated, and came into our skill up program for City and Guilds, and from there off he went across being sought after. We have many of them as well. Okweyemi Ayinigba, who is with one of the, I think is with Crohn's, one of these multi-service skilled companies, multinational. So there are quite a couple of them. So the first thing is to raise the inherent success stories as ambassadors to mitigate against that whole stigma of, if you do not go to university or if you go to a technical college, you are no fit, you are no fit for purpose, or you are a second-class citizen. So that's one. So the societal change must happen. A footballer, they look down on you, but now the footballer is the king now. I mean, so that's what it is with skills. That's one about society. But then you then find that we must also urgently address our educational challenge, which I know that there are progress being made with educational reforms. I know that the Vice President chairs a type of a reform with the educational sector, really looking to upscale and upgrade our quality of that's the root cause that can't be corrected overnight. It cannot, but must be corrected systemically over a period of time to ensure that at a point in time tomorrow, you no longer have graduates who we call half-baked or unemployable. However, because right now the problem has existed for upwards of 20 plus years, I always posit that our decline in education started from about the late 80s. That's when the Momodu started having strikes and all of these issues, and then this issue of funding for universities and what have you. So that's when the decline started. Now, when you therefore say that, because we admit that there's a decline, and we sure have graduates who the market terms these employability challenges, because now, yes, the person is out of school, but you must now personally develop yourself, and that's the type of model that we tried out with the Graduate Empower Program, because we didn't just wake up to say Empower Program, as much as I know that there was a strong campaign promise of candidate Buhari, President Buhari at the time in 2015. The Empower Program was as a result of a strategy document, a strategy work that was done by Dalberg Global Development Advisors, sponsored and empowered by DFID and Ford Foundation at the time. And what we found in as a cross-cutting challenge across the multi-sectors that we did focus groups for was this issue of skills and this issue of employability. And so we asked them to define what the employability skills are and how we could create a program that would tend to address this employability. And one of our graduates must be conversant with technology. And so that's why you see that when you look back at the Empower Program, you see that it was technology driven, and each graduate also had a tablet, in their hands, because we needed to raise them to become digital literate in response to part of the employability challenges that the industry, the various industries had mentioned to us. The second thing also was the fact that the other employability skills you often hear are things around writing skills. You will know that as a journalist, a top veteran journalist that you are, and perhaps the challenges you will find in people just being able to write properly. So writing skills was key. Analytical skills was very critical. Problem solving skills, interpersonal relationship skills. So these were, a few of the high-ranking deficiencies that the industries told us were the challenges of a lot of our Nigerian graduates who we consider unemployable. And so with that program, of course, the next thing then is how do you set up remedial courses, right? But then you also then realize that these are courses that you can self-train. These are courses that you can train yourself once you have the right gadget and you have the right connect materials and many resources. So again, it was not for a lot of people who may not know about how we designed the program, how we implemented the program, and who may also not have gotten a copy of my book where I explained a lot of it. That's the whole essence of how we got to put tablets in the hands of a lot of our Nigerian youths, even though I know that it's only the batch 1, 200,000 of them that got the tablets. The batch 2 are still not, they don't have their tablets yet as we speak today. But that's the essence, because then you are basically passing on that challenge of personal development back to each speak. The other thing also is to say that, like I said earlier, we must also begin to channel a lot of our youthful energy and our youth towards intrapreneurship and entrepreneurship. And so we found out that also in that tablet, we had preloaded that tablet with a lot of useful materials that deals with that deals with all of these topics that I've mentioned. Such that we also found success stories. I would recommend chapter 12, as you found in the book, which has a bit of some of our success stories, even from the program in less than 2 years. So for me, what we've done with that is that it can work. We've demonstrated that if well thought out as we did, and if well implemented as so that's the way to address the issue, but we must address it at scale. We must address it with the rigor that is required, and obviously it's also a multi-stakeholder approach. Yeah.
You see, I must say this very publicly. You mentioned it, I already wrote it down, but it's like you were reading my mind. The frustration. I'm sure the editor of Ovation International, Mike F. Young, is watching us at this moment. Right now, we are looking for one excellent writer, a fantastic writer, and we are not even sure that we can get a first-class graduate who can meet the standard required by us. Fantastic writer, an all-rounder, versatile, confident, presentable. We're looking for that. So you will see that there are jobs, but to find one, you can have 10,000 applications and you will not find one. It's extremely frustrating. And my advice, and since we're discussing this now, is that people should train themselves. It's not enough saying, I am getting a certificate. You must be prepared. Look, if you look behind me, I had books that I bought 40 years ago, the African writers. I have books all around here. Every day I get new books, whether I can read them immediately or not. And I don't know. Again, don't you think we have too many universities in Nigeria that are not up to standard? I know it's political, but I mean, we must begin to do the right things. Otherwise, we should stop complaining. I mean, those who went to Unilag, went to Ife, they can't find jobs. Not to now talk, I don't want to mention some places that I know. You go there.
Right? There are some hard truths that we must tell ourselves as a people and as a country. And then I think sometimes beyond the hard truth, I think you need to, as policymakers, as regulators, and as those of us who are public servants, we must always also know the appropriate place to put our incentive. Because good many times is not just born out of morality. It's great if you have morality and you are good as a virtue of that. But you can incentivize good. And so also it is that the problem, I think, and just as with many of the type of a handout, allocation, whatever name you call it, then it always breeds, it will always breed laziness, and it would always breed, mediocrity. But I believe that if we actually ask our universities, so I'm not going to answer the question to say maybe. So I believe that if we allow the universities to go autonomous, it will begin to solve the problem. First and foremost, by autonomy, it means therefore that even if government is going to give you a subvention, there must be clear yardsticks by which you would earn that subvention, so that the subvention in itself becomes competitive, just like any other fellowship. So if that is the route you want to go, then the first question that any and every vice chancellor will begin to ask is to look inwards, to ask yourself, to what do I want to be renowned for? So that nobody is a jack of all trades. The reason why every university is a jack of all trades, and even polytechnics are looking to become universities, is simply because, like I said, you are in an era where there's a type of allocation. But once you start asking yourself, to what do I want to be renowned for? You then find that if it's going to be law, if it's going to be innovative research, if it's going to be innovation, if it's going to be technology, whatever it is, you would rearrange all of your limited resources to become strong in that, to the point that you are so strong enough to attract competitive resources. And I think government subvention should be one of such competitive resources. Of course, the next question the populists will say is that, what is Afolabi saying? Or you don't know that the moment that university will go up and what have you? Well, the question we should first ask is, okay, the cost of university is what it is now, right? Affordable in some sense. But what then is the output? Your children then come out, you are still feeding graduates, aspirants in your home. So, is it not better that if you were to pay a little more, that would have guaranteed quality, that also would have made those institutions to become, very resourceful and creative, that they would even create bursaries and scholarships? I mentioned earlier that I had an admission in a university that gave me full scholarship, room and board. I mean, that university giving me full scholarship, room and board, they came to look for the brightest of the brightest. Why are they looking for the brightest of the brightest? Because that investment and the researchers and all those where they get their grants and funding from. That's the reason why, I was being offered. So that's what will happen when you have universities go autonomous, when you have universities refocus their strengths, their resources around their key areas of strength, and they become good at whatever it is that they say they want to be. And and that's it. And so you then find, because that then forces us to again go rejig our educational system, like I said, where there is no dead end. Over the world, even when I was in the States, in all the universities I went to, from Essex County College to Rutgers University, it is not, there is no average American citizen that is able to afford aid, and grants. Aid is not a grant. It's a loan that they must pay back. And if it's a bursary or scholarship, we are just as competitive. Just the same way I was competitive, they too must be competitive. So nobody, but for those who came, nobody was waiting on some handout from a cheap school, so to speak, because government is giving that school handout. No. But what happened? The point is that everyone was able to pace their own development based on their realities. I had colleagues in my class, in my school, who would only come in the evening because they have to go to work in the morning. Because I was fully and also working to also augment where I was, where I'm taking maybe 18 credits in this semester, they may not be able to take more than 9 credits, which is 3 classes, or maximum 4 classes. But you will self-pace yourself. And at the end of the day, the quality of what you get will be cutting edge. Now, so that's what it is. So this, I know, you know, sir, you will know from basic research. Every year, we graduate post-secondary school at least over 1.4, 1.8 million post-secondary school graduates. And how do I know that? It's just from JAMB numbers. Upwards of 1.4 million applicants of JAMB every year. That's how it was not designed, but JAMB became profitable from the volume of people taking exams. But guess what? The total number of slots, even if everybody were to pass and meet the cutoff, the total number of slots of all the universities, monotechnic, polytechnic, university, federal, private, states, it's not up to 400,000. So really and truly, you already have a first pace yourself anyways, because what it means is that in through that funnel. So when we try to deceive ourselves to say that if you do this to make education not, it will make education unaffordable and all that. I don't subscribe to it, because again, like I said, the basic education that is required, that is universal, that everybody must have, and which is why it is free. Most times at all of that level, free basic education is your 9 years. Post-secondary, anything after that, it's really up to you to build.
Difficult. That may be difficult in a country like Nigeria because of the level of mass poverty. And already we have education deficit. So if education then becomes too competitive, like you have in America, I would suggest the British model. I love the British model. The poor people will go to government school, but the government school is also of very high standards. Yeah. That's phase 1. The second phase is that the top universities, Cambridge, Oxford, and the rest of them have a quota also for the children of the so-called poor who go to government schools.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it will be only the rich people who went to Harrow, Charterhouse, Eton College, to work on that.
A hybrid.
Yes, but the problem I now see is in the lowering of education standards by saying you have a cutoff mark. The cutoff mark must be standardized. That is my advice. I know that for those in government, this is very political, but I'm speaking as an independent person, that One of the things that killed our education is the fact that we refuse to standardize our education. There is nowhere in the world. It's either you pass or you fail.
Or you fail, yeah.
So education is not, there is no emotion, no sentiment about education. If you want to go to the next level, then go and do your exam. The next question I wanted to ask you is based on a book I read long ago by the philosopher Bertrand Russell.
Yes.
It's titled In Praise of Idleness. Now,
in praise of
theory, in praise of idleness. And he wrote this book way back, many decades ago. But his problem, what he tried to tackle in that book, is the problem of unemployment. He says too many people are over, he says a few people are not employed at all. So he then came to the suggestion that is it not better if instead of having 1 million people do all the work, increase to 2 million people by reducing the number of hours that anybody can work. So now most people work about 8 hours a day. So his own theory in that book is that is it not better that you give everyone an opportunity by reducing to 4 hours? And then within that 4 hours, then it's possible for you to go to school. Do you think this can ever happen in Nigeria?
Well, so a few things would need to change for us to even be able to attempt anything close to that. One of it is the issue of how we remunerate. I think that in our economy, I actually think our economy should be an hourly pay type of economy, which also then allows, and so I also, in fact, I don't even understand why our economy should have been a 24/7 economy, where people, so you have the 888. So, and even if now we wanted to do it a 4 or a 6 hour, however, in terms of reduced hours of work to the minimum hours to be able to give room for a lot more people. I think the fact that we are only just working 9 to 5, a 9 to 5 economy, or maybe an 8 to 8 economy, except for a few specific industries, is something that we need to look into. We really need to open up the economy. I know that security is part of the reason what hampers that, but it's really something that we need to look at. If you can, I remember when on in the very early years of his first term was because he wanted to revive the nightlife back in Lagos. And you know that happened. VI again started bubbling. I mean, the whole island, the Ikeja, different suburbs, the nightlife was revived. And so that way you were able to have people walk across the cycle, across the 24-hour shift. So I think that, and then I think, but what also helps that is this hourly pay, the concept of hourly pay. That also helps. But above all, I think with our numbers in terms of our, the challenge we have also in Nigeria is the fact that our population is very youthful. So that's an asset. But if we don't really mind that asset to become a capital, they could become a liability for us. As find therefore that because all fingers are not equal, there would always be the bit where government is making some level of intervention for those that are the very, very poor or the very, very disadvantaged, to be able to give them a lift out of that desperation. And then once you are at least at the bottom level of the ladder, you can then begin to climb up. So there would always be that that role for government. But I believe that what we must also begin to do is to look to how do we make this. We have to make it more market driven, away from a statist approach to a more market driven framework. And so, because government cannot employ government in all cadre now, whether it's local government, state, and federal government is always the yes, they employ quite a lot of people, no doubt, but when you put the collective private sector together, the numbers of the private sector would always outweigh
definitely
that of government. But that is so important, because what we then, even as government in our approach to create that equal opportunity or soft landing for the very disadvantaged or the very poor, what we must do is the value chains that are in any and every of our environment, and identify those value chain opportunities. And what we must do as government is galvanize these people through database, as we have. To select the 500,000 Empower, for example, we had over 2.5 million applications. So you have the 500,000 in already who, yes, benefited, and they probably have one leg or so at the bottom of the ladder of climbing out of poverty now. But you must still dam, you still must dam that, you must dam that water or that resources to be able to ensure that they can be connected to specific value chain. Even those who were not in the Empire program, maybe the 2 million or odd 1 point something million that didn't get in, but we have their data. We must find ways by which we are connecting those data to the needs of our communities, to the value chain that exists in our communities. These are doable. These are the things that we must do, because all around us there are challenges, and with every challenge we must foster the solution and look inwards to be able to use some of these resources that we have invested in to take on. When we were doing enumeration for some of the government loans, the government enterprise loans across country, whether it's the Jeep and all that, rather than go hire another set of consultants to come and do those enumeration, what the Bank of Industry simply did, since the Empower volunteers, one, they have a computing tablet, so they have a gadget, and two, they are in every local government in the country. They basically just utilize them to gather, to enumerate and gather the data and pay them an incentive for it, which was an additional income. Now, these are the kind of community-based response to our challenges that we must look into. And you find, therefore, that our states have a lot of work to do. Our states and local government have a lot of work to do. And those were my recommendations in chapter 15. We must become very good students of leverage, where we're able to leverage the little and the thin resources that we have, whether as local government, as state, as federal, rather than this thing that everyone is working in a silo. Federal will do this one, state will do, local government will do, and at the end of the day, you are all working across purposes. And to some of those, a lot of those, we try to remove a lot of those duplicities when in the design of the program as enumerated in the books. So that's the way. So on population growth is not being checked. You would agree with me, and you are well traveled to know that when you look at the countries now that have almost non-existent unemployment or very low single digit 1, 2, 3%, the Scandinavian countries, the Finlands of this world, you know what they did with their population. They incentivize the control of population growth. You know, they incentivized it from exploding. But here we have cultural and religious issues that would even first, stare us in the face when we are trying to even try to move in that direction. So with that alone already, we have a big challenge.
Are you saying that we should control our population explosion?
It's very important.
There are people who will disagree with you. I saw on that topic on Sunday. It's going to be very, very explosive. He says he wants 10 million, the population of the world to go to 10 million.
Yes. Well, I look forward to that conversation, but the truth is the ones we have now. So again, when you look at India, you know that of course they are way much more than we are, but part of, and of course we also know the poverty issues, and we know how they are working very hard. Like I also referenced, we can even learn from, and some of the work we did in social investment, we took some case studies from there. But part of something else that they did is, there's also a way where they export their human capital to other countries, which also is the reason why there's no part of the globe you go to, you will find an African, and out of every 10 African, I think there's statistics as there are 4 or 5 our human resources to other countries, to the point that also when you look at inflows from Western Union, it's also a significant amount that comes into our economy. But quite honestly, my challenge is, if we really want to take on this problem of unemployment, our population growth is a challenge.
But religion will also be a major factor.
That's why I said religion.
There is no church that will allow you to preach abortion in Nigeria. It won't fly.
But maybe it's just family planning.
Contraceptives.
So you see, so I think
there is no easy way out.
So at the end of the day, and it's good we're having this conversation, the reason I brought it up is so that sometimes even us as Nigerians can also cut our government a slack to say that, listen, not that we have done the best, don't get me wrong, there's a whole lot more we can do within whatever it is that we have. But the point is just that even those that we say are government leaders, right, or public servants, we are all from the same community, same society, that we know and recognize that religion and culture would devour. So this is a conversation that we must have. They are hardcore truths, hardcore conversations that we must have. However, is one of the shortest route to getting out of at least what I would call extreme poverty. You may not you may not be rich, you may not become Bill Gates, and it's not given that everybody will become Bill Gates, but at least you will be able to feed. And community involvement becomes very critical. By community involvement, government, it also involves the fact that our local governments have to become very active. Our local governments must know their people. Data, the role of data at that level becomes very critical. The role of technology at that level becomes very critical. The role of innovative governance at local government level becomes very critical. You and I know what is our local government today. You go into a local government secretariat, you can hardly find one computer. Even if you find a computer, it's probably so. But that's where it must start from. It has to be community-based, community-based, community-based. So in as much as and that's why I've always said, because a lot of the viewers will say, but hey, Afolabi, you are talking to us, are you not the SSA on job creation? Yes, but like you also said, there's just no easy way out. You can't have a fiat. Religion and culture won't allow you to have a fiat. Sometimes as well, even in governance, you also can't have a fiat because we practice a federation. There's local government, there's states, there's federal. It's a federating entity, and each one of them run on concurrency in the constitution that we have. So we must recognize, therefore, that this issue of unemployment, particularly youth unemployment, is a problem that we must collectively agree that we need to tackle. And if we are going to tackle it, it's not just one of those. We really must address the quality of our governance at that level, and begin to apply technology, begin to apply data science at that level. I say there is no federal child anywhere. Every child of Nigerian, every bona fide Nigerian citizen like I am, is from one community called Lagos Island Campus, which is my own community, within a state called Lagos State, within the context of federal. And if I want to be politically correct, I will say Afolabi Mokwede of Sabongida Ora, within a local government of Onwa in a state of Edo, within the context of Federal Republic of Nigeria. So there is no federal child. And if once we understand that, then we begin to ask ourselves, digital, and the COVID has shown us that already.
There is an issue that worries me. Why is government dashing out free money to people? And then I will break it into parts. One, how do you guarantee correct data base of those being given the money?
Yeah.
And why encourage cash gifts when you can compel people? I mean, in most parts of Nigeria, we may not have banks everywhere.
Yeah.
You must have a bank close to your local government. So if truly you need that money, then let's start from those who are ready before we go to start thinking about those who are not ready. I'm worried that we're just throwing away money, and there is no way of knowing how the money is utilized. Some people might collect, and then it's an incentive to marry more wives.
So let me address that. And you have asked a very touchy question, and that's why I took quite a bit of pages in the book, the Never and Afterthought book, to really narrate the sequencing and the flow. I think if I would just I'm just trying to see if I can quickly just find it. So, for example, this page, and I think it's page 162, 163, it shows a flow chart of how we run the process before money gets into the hand of every beneficiary. So let me agree with you first. There is no accountability when it comes to cash. So I completely agree with you. And the government of Buhari, at least in the first term when we drove and designed the social investment program, that was also the that was the nomenclature. It was not a cash business. It was a business around identity and knowing who and whoever we were giving money to. We cannot be doling out cash in 2020. I mean, we should.
But it's happening.
So yes, of course, it's happening. But
I saw money. They put money on table, cash on table, like this, as if you are in a marketplace in Oyigbo or Dubai or somewhere. It's unbelievable.
Bob D, I'm glad that we're having conversations like this, and these conversations also helps to correct certain anomalies or maybe certain deficiencies across government. Government, as you know, is being in government and having run a notable program in government where beneficiaries got their money without doling cash. Then it tells us it can work. If there's anything that is a short summary of my first 4 years experience, which this book captures, is basically to say it's a signpost. We erected a signpost of what is able to work. Now, what did we do? BVN was number one, the sine qua non. And even for the bottom of the bottom, which is the conditional cash transfer, which is the vulnerable poor, we actually captured their BVN. We got the banks to go, working with CBN, we got the banks to go into every community to capture their BVN and open accounts for every beneficiary. So I can say to you categorically, we had to move the program now to the new Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. I know that whether it was a conditional cash transfer, whether it was the school feeding cooks, whether it was my Empower beneficiaries or the government enterprise loan, nobody dealt with cash. Everybody was paid into their bank account because we had their BVN identity. Now, what then happened is, by the time you want to pay out, and I can say this particularly for the conditional cash transfer, for example, you then realize that some communities don't even have a bank, and banks are far. So what did we do? For every of those communities, we assigned mobile money agents. We assigned to communities, and we assigned to certain bank accounts. So those mobile money agents, they know that I'm coming into women or poor women or widows that I want to pay, and I want to pay them their 5,000 money, right? Which is 20 of them 100,000. That mobile money agent will go into, but you also know that these 20 people, maybe their account is with First Bank. You know them by their identity. You know the account in First Bank, and that mobile money agent already has First Bank as one of the banks assigned to him or to that mobile money agent and to this community. So you are marked. So that way you then go into that community, you will pay those women, their money. So you expend the 100,000 to those women in their community, and with that receipt of the money you have so that was how, in some cases, so of course, because now the point of cash there is now the cash is being carried by the mobile money agents, not by government going to go and give money and all of that. So even with that, because you will provide that mobile to also provide security, because it's a community-based effort, and that's how we dealt with even the poorest of the poor that may have a very valid reason to say that I don't have a bank or I'm not even literate enough to go and use an ATM. So that's how we dealt with that program. And but yes, I know in the wake of the COVID response, I know that there were some cash handling. I wouldn't know the reason behind that, but I believe that
there was another problem with it, not just cash handling.
Yeah.
In a country of 200 million, where I don't know how many poor people you reckon you have. So some people were paid. I mean, on television, they claimed they were paid 20,000, which means 5,000 for 4 months, while some people have never received. I have poor people in my family. If you go to Bongon, you go to. I have not seen anybody who received 1 kobo, and yet some people got 20,000. So, what would you suggest, based on your experience, on how to make sure we can spread the joy? You see, because what the government is trying to do is to alleviate poverty, but then you have to also make it as widespread as possible.
Yeah. So, and quite honestly, like I said earlier, I like to reference and summarize the work we did. Some of these things you said. I think it's important that we build on foundations. And you know, that's also part of the problem that has made our journey as a country a little staggered. We hardly build on foundations, because even sometimes our buildings don't even have foundations. But one thing that we did, at least during this stewardship that I'm reporting as a journey, as a part of my life journey thus far, it's not my last, definitely. We took enormous time to ensure that our foundation has as a foundation. So I recommend to any and every government actor at every level, federal, state, local government, to really research and build on foundations. And that's where the role of data, it's very important. Data is so very important, because the data we collected, at least if it's for the youth, for example, whilst yes, there are many youths and there are multiples of 2.5 millions of unemployed youths. Yes, I don't know the latest numbers now that MBS may be reporting. But the point is that at least the ones we have.
How many?
I said the data we had was about 2.5 million youths that applied for Empower.
Oh,
yeah.
They
applied for Empower.
But about how many unemployed would you reckon you have?
I know the MBS about 3 million at that time. So 3 million. 3 million at that time. Graduates, or just not total unemployment, unemployed graduates.
Graduates. I think it will be much more than that.
By now, of course, it would be. Of course, every year you turn out more graduates, and we've had recession and COVID and all of that. So I haven't laid my hands on the last report of MBS. But I'm just saying that whilst I do agree that number may be in multiples, now it may be 1 or 2 multiples of that number. Whatever the number is, the point is we at least have a starting point. And that starting point that we have has the data spread across local government and states. So there is no, if a local government official can say, well, as at this date, 2017, this is the data I have. We can then look for data between 2018 and now. But at least you have a start point. So that's the whole point I'm trying to say, that we really need to build on foundations, because guess what? It's not my money that was used to lay the foundation. It's the federal government's money. So if anybody, and it's our commonwealth, so if anybody in any sphere of government also wants to do something similar, and you disregard what has been done before,
this lack of continuity is very frustrating to a lot of us. That every government that comes wants to start from scratch. I once went to see Mr. Babatunde Raji Fashola in his office. I was worried about the state of our roads, our electricity, And he explained something to me, why ministers should not be changed regularly. And I agree with him that a new minister, it will take him about 2-3 years to travel around Nigeria to see things.
Reports, yeah.
Or the report. So if you remove that minister, you have wasted the 2-3 years of his own research. The new minister then comes in, then has to go through the same ritual. And I don't know how we can do that.
Well, you notice that was also the reason, of course, under the mandate of the president, when for works and the roads, there were no that we have to ensure that it's finished. There's no point going to start a new road when the one started yesterday is not yet finished, to be able to give us the value for money and the benefit to for Nigerians. But yes, you cannot but underscore that point, that continuity is so critical, especially if you ensure that proper foundations have been laid. So you just want to technology, the role of data is so important that I don't know what else you want to do when there's data and technology already. What else you want to add? You can only improve, but that's your baseline.
We've almost done 2 hours. You won't believe it. Almost. We have just about 14 minutes to 2 hours. Non-stop. This is very, very, very important. It's a very, 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 very important evening for me.
Wow.
Yes, also, I am bothered about the lack of credit facility. If you say you want to empower people, credit, none of us will be able to survive abroad. I live partly in London.
Without credit.
So, without, especially mortgages, I wonder, and I've asked a lot of my friends who are bankers, that what makes it so difficult? You can say you won't give me a car loan, but hey, buy your Momodu, our guy, you can tell me that you will not give me a car loan because I can disappear with the car, but I can't disappear with the home.
Yeah.
And so I thought government should encourage our banks to start from giving credit facilities to those who want to build homes. Is it because shelter is very important? And then entrepreneurs. I know, we used to do something on television. A young friend of mine, Goke Dokun, invited us to the entrepreneur series on television, whereby people come with their proposals. Some people need 50,000 to make it in life. Some people need 100,000 to make it in life. Do you think your government has done enough in that direction to look at entrepreneurs? You cannot employ people, so how do we then create people who can create jobs?
So let me say that we've hit it on the head. It is, whether we like it or not, we must look entrepreneurship, and the root of that is always going to be seed capital. So whilst I do give credit, the legs of the social investment program, the government enterprise empowerment program, managed by Bank of Industry, and the simple reason of access to credit, no access to credit. These guys who are in this small business rate, even because the Jeep loan at the time was for 50,000, 50,000. Farmer money was about 300,000. Before we even brought it down, was when we started with the Jeep loan of 50,000, which again you have to come together in a cooperative, 50,000 per person, but obviously you form a cooperative for each person to gather 50,000, and then so it becomes a lot more money for that cooperative to do a lot of entrepreneurship work. It was when we approached that we realized that there was still quite a whole lot of people that were excluded. That was what made that was what brought the decision down to bring it down to what you then knew as trader money, market money and trader money at the time, which was now 10,000 to really cater for those who are really at the bottom of the pyramid but want to grow their business. So yes, that was a type of jump starting credit. If we must take entrepreneurship, if we do agree that entrepreneurship is critical. Now, even when you look at construction that you talked about, especially building construction, it is beyond shelter and the request for mortgage for shelter. It is also an economic revitalization. Countries upon countries upon countries have gotten out of recession purely out of building construction. And then some add road construction to it. But we know now, even in the days of technology, that the amount of revitalization you get from but both, any form of construction is important because it actually revives the economy. So you must build, and so you would even see from the recently approved economic sustainability plan to deal with the sudden crisis we have with COVID-19. Construction is also one of those, housing construction is also one of those key pointers that Minister BRF is being saddled with to address under that sustainability plan. But then guess what? Which is where we must take it beyond most times where government stops. Most times in our government thinking, we think so much about supply, which is, yes, I need to revitalize the economy, I need to stimulate housing construction, I need to build the homes, I want to make it affordable. You talk about the supply, you work on the supply, you start the building, right? But then the problem is the demand. Bandit around 17 million homes, 17 million homes. I don't know how credible that, because it's been 17 million for over several years. I don't know how credible those statistics are. But the question really is, we do not have the purchasing power demand up to that volume. So you therefore find that the issue of mortgages are know the answer. I keep asking the question. I've gone to several fora. I've been invited to speak on several fora in real estate forum year upon year, and I keep asking the stakeholders that what is the problem? There was a time it was mortgage refinancing MRC. I know the then President Jonathan set it up with then Minister Okonjo-Iweala and MRC. NMRC is now, we still are not seeing the mortgages. What really is the issue? I don't have the answer. But again, this is an open conversation. I'm sure those who know better than me in housing finance may be able to express interest and come on to address it. Construction is so key to revitalizing our economy, especially where in our own case, we trained over 26,000, about 26,000 youths. What am I saying? 46,000 youths. No, sorry. In the first year was 16,000. The second year was 12,000. So that's 28. Yes, we trained about 30, rough about 34,000 youths specifically for the building construction alone. Out of the close to 60,000 we trained in skills to industry. Tilers, painters, and the like, So we train for that industry. Now, for them to be engaged, there must be housing construction going on for them to be engaged. Now, for your housing construction, it's never a problem for government to start. I mean, the truth is we always start. But can we continue? Can we? The demand must be met with the supply. And for the demand to be sustainable, you must have the mortgages or the credit facilities out there. So that's the value chain. I like to say, as we're wrapping up, that we must put on a value chain mind scenario and our thinking in public sector, in private sector, as public servants. Most so it's not enough to trigger the value chain, but you must begin to think even before you trigger. How do you sustain that triggered value chain? I think the answers are in the questions that we're asking, and we really want to open this up to a lot of our professionals who know better than I to help us to answer these questions.
Okay, maybe finally, we're just 5 minutes to 2 hours now. I can't believe what happened that the time went so quickly. Yes. Now, I have a personal theory of mine that leadership is about managing people and resources. But it seems in Nigeria, leadership is a so how do you bring someone who has never managed a business? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I'll try to couch it in a way that you'll be comfortable. Okay. Is that how do you bring someone who has never managed 1 million and you now ask him to come and manage a trillion naira budget? Don't you see this as a problem? So is it not possible for us to begin to move away and de-emphasize politics and emphasize achievement, accomplishment?
So, Bobby, my readers and would-be readers of this book to get from this book, it's really espousing the fact that leadership, as you've said, it's a function of. So let me follow your definition: management of people and resources. So true, and that for public service, in fact, in any service, but at least since we're speaking. Becomes so very critical and so very intertwined. Now, you find that politics, in my view, should at least at best be an experienced skill of stakeholder management, and not what, not this zero-sum politics that many times we play. I believe that when we begin to change our mindset and really rejig our politics to a win-win, a win-win thinking, you then, because for you to achieve a win-win, there's one critical skill you must have. It's about balancing stakeholders. It's about managing stakeholders and ensuring that you create a consensus and you create a win-win. Now, when you have that, in addition to you will succeed in public service. So I think part of the problem of a lot of us in private sector, as you read from the title, private sector pragmatism to a government idealism, part of the problem with a lot of us from private sector into public sector is the issue of managing politics. Politics is alien to a lot of us, even though you do have boardroom politics too. So but I think boardroom politics many times is around what I'm talking about, stakeholder management and how you build consensus. But when you play politics of zero sum, then nobody gains. So conversation. I like a quote of President Bill Clinton, who I've been mentored quite a lot by his books, and I listened to his podcast on Sunday. You know, America's July 4 was on Saturday. So there was a podcast he had actually delivered last year, July 4, and he was espousing the concept of the oath that American presidents take. That on that January 20, every 4 years, when they take that oath, they're taking that oath in defense of the Constitution. And so he mentioned that in that oath that they take, of which is made up of broad words, there were two phrases he brought out. One of the phrases is "we the people." So he says every American president is taking an oath to defend the Constitution, that the Constitution starts by saying "we the people," because the Constitution of America is "we the people" Constitution. So he says the "we the people" is one phrase, and for him, it therefore becomes the responsibility of every president individually now to ask his or herself, where there's been no in their case, but to ask himself, this "we the people," who are they? Is it who makes up the "we the people"? Is it an exclusive list? Is it an inclusive list? Or is it yourself? Yourself alone. Say, so what is the composition of "we the people"? Then the second phrase is towards a more perfect union. Again, saying that whatever each president, having taken this oath, does or must do, you must always again ask yourself the question, is this leading to a more perfect union? Because if you remember, their founding fathers told them that what you have is a republic if you can keep it. So the concept of towards a more perfect union, I've given you a republic that enables you to govern yourself. It is not a monarchy, it is a republic if you can keep it. So therefore, every president at any point in time, every 4 years, on that January 20, you must always measure yourself by these two common phrases. Now, I would want to submit that that's really, those are perhaps the phrases that we as public servants must begin to also ask ourselves. And that's what enables us to follow after your definition of leadership, management of people and resources. I have said in playing zero sum, but playing a win-win, because the question is, we have to ask ourselves, who is we the people? Who really is we the people? Is it only an exclusive list of some people, as is said, every public servant, not just the president in this case, I myself inclusive, should serve? Or is it an all-inclusive list that includes that poor widow, that includes that disadvantaged, physical challenged person, that includes any and everybody? So we must continue to ask ourselves those questions. And then the next question is towards a more perfect union. I listened as you were discussing with Pastor Itwa 2 days ago, and you were talking about the unity of Nigeria. We have to ask ourselves, are we working towards a more perfect union? If we are working towards a more perfect union, perhaps one of the questions you asked earlier about how should we not be standardizing education? Why are we still having some form of quota system or the other and things? I think it all will be answered in that phrase, towards a more perfect union. And that's how I, as a public servant, will want to be measured. That's how I, as a public servant, will want to be evaluated. And that's what I would perhaps want my readers and will-be readers of this book to also lead in that conversation. That's the conversation I want us to have with the Never an Afterthought book, because really, we must have, I have offered myself as a type
of a private sector person that has gone into the public sector, even in a private sector space. I was already integrating with public sector because I did quite a bit of public sector partnership linkages, whether with the development agencies or even with the skill up module, because like I said, there was government that was the second pillar, and so I brokered partnerships with the Lagos State government at the time, Lagos State Technical Vocational Education Board, with Engineer Laomi Gaspar, and with Rivers State, with a few other states, Edo State and a few other states at the time. So because we knew that the public and the private must work together. But beyond there, I've been privileged now, by the grace of God, with the belief of both Mr. President Buhari and Vice President Yemi Osinbajo to serve in this capacity. I've seen, and I do know that one of the things that we must do, and every successive government, whether at local government, state, or federal, should do, is to bring in a whole lot more of us, private sector people who have excelled in leadership of people and resources. And when you bring them, the only reason they will stay and we will do so much is when we stop this zero-sum practice that we call politics. But I believe politics should be about we the people. I believe politics should be about stakeholder management. I believe politics should be about a win-win, not a zero-sum. So let's understand that politics is not only defined for Nigeria. Politics is a universal word. So we really must define politics for what it is, and in a way that it progresses us and takes us towards a more perfect union. So that's basically my summation on that.
Wow, wow. I think I will have to invite you back because there is a very important topic that we did not discuss.
Yes.
This has to be with the political system of
Yes.
Nigeria.
Yes.
Nigeria copied America. You see, which means we are by and large a capitalist country.
Yes.
And I wonder how a country as poverty-stricken and impoverished as Nigeria is can practice capitalism without capital.
True.
It's something that worries me. We have a political system that compels the country to spend more money on the operatives of government than on the entire population of the country. This is something that must be discussed, and we must find a way to put an end to it urgently before it kills all of us. You see, Nigeria may disappear, may collapse under the weight, the burden of carrying the excesses of our political leaders. It is too much. It is too much. And I think it's something that you and I will have to discuss in the near future. Now, one of the things I've also learned from Pastor Itwa is that we must all begin to discuss leadership, not politics. There is much emphasis. Politics should be a means. It should not be an end.
Oh, yes.
But in Nigeria, we make it the end. And that's why because if I was contested to be president,
Yes.
I don't think I'm interested again. I've been frustrated out of it. But one thing that bothers me is that I liken leadership to the game of football. If you give me a team, you say this is Arsenal, this is Man U. The moment I look at the composition of the team,
of the players,
I will know they have. That's the problem facing our leadership. You look at the team, what's upon the
social studies. It was part of social. Yeah.
Thanks.
Oh.
Yes. So, in the next, I want to thank you. Have any final words you want to please feel free. No problem at all.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Egbon. And obviously, your writings inspire. I read your pendulum, often, and your writings inspire us. And really, I also want to thank you for this platform that you have started. I know that COVID brought about a lot of innovations for us, but and more so, thank you for having me, and at least also promoting this the Never and Afterthought just released book. I think what is important for me is this. We must continue these conversations. Nigeria is a commonwealth, and by commonwealth it means that every elected leader is entrusted, every citizen of Nigeria, particularly those of voting age who represent all the other citizens of Nigeria, are literally the ones that entrust commonwealth to the hands of each and every of our elected leaders. And that's why when we talk about we the people, even if any leader is to think that any public servant is to think less of the composition of we the people, where those of us who make the commonwealth of Nigeria, for which the wealth is common, and they are managing, our public servants like me and every other leader is managing in trust on our behalf. I think we cannot afford to continue to remain quiet for too long. Engagements like this are very necessary. I think it's also important that public servants also open themselves up, for conversations. In this book, one of the things I'm promoting is conversations. I welcome divergent views, because many times your views could become educating or enlightening to me, or sometimes your views is as a result of the lack of detailed facts. So there is no reason whatsoever that in writing is a lot of people have asked me, nobody really does this. You are still in government. In fact, the fact that a lot of people saw this book, the first question they said is, oh, he has left. I said, no, I have not left government. I'm still in government.
Government officer to talk.
Yes, I'm still in government, and perhaps, thankfully, there is no government secret. And so long as there's no government secret in it, it's a trajectory of my life. But more importantly, it is what, and as an accountant, we were trained with what is called facts behind the figures, because we do figures and people relate with us as figures, but there are facts behind the figures that we must share. And so I needed to also share the facts behind the happenings. Core facts, no, there's no, these are all known facts, public information. It was important to document the rigors and the hard work that went into this book. So I really want us to continue this conversation at every level. It's very, very, very important. And so I want to thank you again. And my closing words is that I'm very available for this conversation. The good thing about technology in Abuja or in Lagos, in Cancun, anywhere I am in the world, we can have this conversation. So thank you very much, Egbon Bobdi.
No, I must thank you. Thank you so much. Prof. Gege Omojua, I will contact you later. I think you need now to come on this program. So let's also put you on the spot. Of course, Henry Ukazu, my dear friend from New York, is watching. I've seen a lot of friends. I've seen one of our regulars from Brazil. The beauty of Instagram Live is that can reach everybody from every part of the world.
But please, someone just asked in the comments, where can we get this book? Well, I'm sure some of my viewers will respond, but there's a dedicated website. Of course, COVID has told us to go digital, so it's www.neverandafterthought.com. So it's www.neverandafterthought.com. For those of us in Nigeria, there's nationwide delivery once you buy on the site. If you are outside of Nigeria, there's the Amazon links are also contained in the website where you can buy and to be delivered to you wherever you are in the globe. And last but not the least, for you to be watching me here, then you are not a traditionalist. Because a traditionalist, yes, Roving Heights is a partner, and so their bookstores carry it, and more bookstores will carry it in coming weeks and days. But that you are watching me on Instagram, you are not the category for bookstores. So please just go to www.neverandafterthought.com and you can order. And our site is safe and secure. There's a padlock there. The padlock is to show that is your millions are safe. Yes, your millions are safe. Thanks, Egbo.
Thank you so much, and then we'll close with another music.
Do you have KSA?
Oh, you want KSA?
KSA, no. Even though the Classic FM is doing a giant competition now, they've not been able to find a winner between KSA and Obey. Both of them I like, so anyone.
We'll give you
Okay, sir.
Just stay with us. Okay, let's have that in the meantime.
Look at this Alakuba. Afolabi Momodu for president. You are not serious. There's no vacancy in Aso Rock.
You have a hotspot now. Okay. Sorry.
Not a problem, sir.
We have to carry many gadgets here.
I was looking at the comments. Someone said Afolabi Momodu for president. I said, there's no vacancy in Aso Rock. Don't cover Bob Dio.
You know, everybody. What does it end with F or something? Anyone? Let's find anyone. Yeah, okay, that's fine. You know, everybody I bring will say, he should be the president. They say, I
I've been close, and they can ask from me who is close. I'm a top aide of the president, so Baba gbọ́ pẹ́ mi. Yep. Pam 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 pam. Appreciation. Mo dúpẹ́ oníbùwọ̀ rẹ bàbá gbọ́ pẹ́ mi. Appreciation. Mo dúpẹ́ oníbùwọ̀ rẹ bàbá gbọ́ pẹ́ mi. Bẹ́ẹ̀nìyàn kan lọ́lọ́run mi rí. Bẹ́ẹ̀nìyàn kan lọ́lọ́run mi rí o. Bẹ́ẹ̀nìyàn kan lọ́lọ́run mi rí. Ẹ̀dá ló ń gbàgbé. Olúwa kò gbàgbé ẹnìkan. Appreciation. Mo dúpẹ́ oníbùwọ̀ rẹ bàbá gbọ́ pẹ́ mi. Appreciation. Mo dúpẹ́ oníbùwọ̀ rẹ bàbá gbọ́ pẹ́ mi. Pam 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 pam. Ba, 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 ba. Eh? Ba, 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 ba. Ó lè mọ pẹ́ dá olóore appreciation mo dúpẹ́ oníbù ọ̀rẹ́ bàbá gbọ́ pẹ́ mi.
Interesting news in the Guardian.
Yes.
On the discovery of some rare species of gorillas in Cross Rivers in Nigeria.
Wow.
I'm just saying that.
Wow.
See that
Yes, I can see it.
baby
What?
back. Yeah, this is interesting.
Wow.
You see, we have so much in the country, but government must bring in experts to do the right thing.
Yes, sir.
On this note, I say thank you. God bless you.
Thank you,
I
sir.
look forward to speaking to you again.
No problem,
My
sir.
very dear friend, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.